Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon X and Y analysis video. Today's video is going to be all about Furfrou, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, abilities, and stats. So to start things off, Furfrou is a mono-normal type Pokemon introduced in a Generation 6, and one that possesses quite a few more different appearances other than the one that you're seeing on the screen right now, as there is a place in Lumio City that you can go to give your Furfrou a haircut and change up its style, change up the color of its fur, and do all sorts of fun stuff with its appearance, which is also just something cool to keep in mind as you're using this Pokemon if you decide to. But as far as its abilities are concerned, Furfrou only gets one ability actually in the form of Fur Coat, which is actually its signature ability. It's the only Pokemon that gets this ability, and what it does is that it halves the damage of all physical attacks directed at Furfrou, which will essentially allow this Pokemon to take physical hits extremely well. As for its stats though, it has base 75 HP, base 60 defense, and base 90 special defense. Now, even though its HP stat is kind of average to lowish, it has a really fantastic 90 base special defense stat, as I just said, and even though its 60 defense looks fairly low, the Fur Coat ability kind of remedies this significantly, as you are able to take physical hits extremely well, even though it's a very low base defense stat just because of your ability. And as for your attacking stats, Furfrou has base 80 physical attack and base 65 special attack. Now unfortunately, base 80 physical attack is not that impressive as far as offensive normal types go, but Furfrou is definitely capable of doing quite a bit of physical damage if you decide to use it on an offensive set, and its special attack really isn't that great. However, it does get quite a few useful special moves that could be possibly useful on a mixed set if you decide to run one with your Furfrou. And then lastly, it has a base 102 speed, which is actually incredibly quick, allowing Furfrou to be a very fast Pokemon, outspeeding a lot of opponents and potentially doing damage in the process. So the first set that I have for you in this video is a fully offensive physical set for Furfrou to run, so we're going to start by giving it either a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, or an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but lower its special attack. And for the ability, we're obviously going to be going with Fur Coat, as it is the only ability that Furfrou is able to get. And as for the EVs, we're going to be maxing its physical attack with 252 EVs into that stat, 4 into your special defense, and then the remainder 252 EVs into its speed to give it its max speed and max attack possible. And as far as the item is concerned, we could go with a Choice Band to boost the power of Furfrou's physical attacks by 1 stage while locking it into a move, or we can go with a Choice Scarf to boost Furfrou's speed by 1 stage while locking it into a move, or we could go with a Life Orb to boost the power of all of our attacks, but have a negative side effect of 10% recoil every time we use it, but we are able to freely switch up our moves if we do decide to use a Life Orb on this set. And as for the moves, the first one that we're going to be going with is going to be our main stab attack on this set, which is obviously going to be Return. It's the strongest normal type move that Furfrou is easily able to acquire, and it is definitely going to be able to do some solid damage to any opponents that are not resisting it. Along with Return, we are also going to be making use of Sucker Punch, which is a fantastic move for Furfrou to learn, as it is going to give it some priority, and that's always really great. It also gives you really good type coverage along with Return, as Sucker Punch is able to hit those Ghost-type Pokemon that Return is obviously going to not be effective against because they are immune to normal-type moves. Also, it does allow you to basically catch speedier opponents off guard if you are able to bring Furfrou in and maybe revenge kill with the Sucker Punch. And then we're going to be going with Wild Charge for another coverage move on this set, good against obviously the pesky water types and flying types that you're going to be running into all over the place. It does have a little bit of recoil, so that is something to keep in mind if you are using it with a Life Orb, because then you're going to take quite a bit of recoil that turn. But overall, this is just another solid coverage move. And then lastly, we're going to be running with U-Turn on this set to give Furfrou the ability to easily maneuver its way around the battlefields. It'll be able to switch in on, or switch out on Pokemon that might switch in, giving you switch initiative, and it's also just a pretty solid bug move as well to give you some more super effective type coverage if you want to think of it that way. But the really cool thing about this set, and just any offensive set for Furfrou, is that because of its Fur Coat ability, even though we aren't putting any EVs into its defenses, it's actually still able to take physical hits fairly well just because of this ability. And that's kind of something to keep in mind, because even though most offensive Pokemon are pretty frail, Furfrou can still take a physical hit or two if it needs to because of this ability, which is absolutely fantastic. Up next, I have a mixed attacking set for Furfrou for you all today, and this is probably my favorite set in this video. But as far as the nature is concerned on the set, we're going to be going with a Hasty Nature to increase our speed but lower our physical defense, which is totally okay because we are using the Fur Coat ability, which is going to remedy most of that drop to your physical defense anyway, since, as I said just a second ago, that Furfrou's physical defense is still fantastic because of this ability regardless of what we do to it. But as for the EVs are concerned on the set, we're going to put 160 EVs into its physical attack to give it some nice investment into that stat, 96 EVs into its special attack to give it a little bit more special attack there, and then maxing its speed with 252 EVs into its speed. And for the item, we're either going to be going with a Life Orb on this set to increase the damage of all of our attacks while giving us a negative side effect of recoil, or an Expert Belt to increase the damage of all of our super effective attacks, which also does not have that negative side effect of recoil, so that's also just something to keep in mind. But as far as the moves are concerned on this set, the first one we're going to be going with is going to be Work Up, because that's a nice, fantastic way for Furfrou to boost both its physical attack and its special attack by one stage every time it goes for it. And then along with this, we're again going to be making use of our main attacking move in return, as well as Sucker Punch yet again, which is going to be even more effective on this set because of the fact that we are able to boost our attack fairly well, and we will not really need to, say, be locked in on a move if we were to use Sucker Punch with like a banded set or something like that, which is totally viable because we have the liberty of using Work Up to boost our attack instead as opposed to an item. And then in the last move slot, we're either going to be running Surf or Grass Knot. And the reasoning behind this is that in the previous set, it's pretty much walled by most rock types in the game. Like, you can't really do too much damage to a rock type Pokemon on the previous Furfrou set. So this set works to boost both your physical and special attack to allow you to do some damage with both types of moves. And Surf is obviously a great move to be used against rock types because it's super effective. It's also good against many bulky ground types as well, and pretty much anything else that Surf is super effective against. Whereas Grass Knot also serves the same purpose to be super effective against rock types, and more often than not, actually, Grass Knot will probably be more powerful than Surf because of the fact that rock types are typically very heavy, and Grass Knot is based upon weight. But that's something to keep in mind, but also note that even if you do use Grass Knot for the added power against rock types, you don't really have a reliable way to hit steel types other than Sucker Punch, which is also really not that reliable of a way, because obviously your opponent can just not attack and then Sucker Punch will fail. So it's really whichever one you think you want to go with more, whether you want a more reliable move in Surf, or if you want maybe a stronger move for those rock types in Grass Knot. But overall, this is a fantastic set for coverage on Furfrou's part, because it will allow it to definitely counter some of the things that would normally easily be able to come in on it and take any of its physical attacks. Up next, I have a defensive boosting set for Furfrou. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Careful Nature to increase its special defense but lower its special attack, and for the ability, we're going to be going with Fur Coat yet again. As for the EVs, we're going to max its HP with 252 EVs into that stat, put 4 into its physical defense, and then put the remainder 252 EVs into its special defense to max that stat out as well. And then for the item, since this is a more defensive set, we're going to be going with Leftovers to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn. As far as the moves are concerned though, first, we're going to be going with Substitute as a way to get behind a protective barrier to shield us from both attacks and statuses, and also allow Furfrou to take hits easier. Or we could possibly go with Sucker Punch if we so desire to on the set, just to give it the added priority. But the main purpose of this set is to Toxic Stall. And one of the best ways you can do that on this set is through the use of Cotton Guard, which is a boosting move that will increase Furfrou's physical defense by 3 stages every time you go for it. Now, if you think about the Fur Coat ability buffing your defense enough as it is, Cotton Guard will only add to this, allowing you to take physical hits absolutely monstrously well. And yes, I just said that. And obviously with your max special defense on the set, we're going to be able to take special hits extremely well as well, which means that Furfrou will just become an impeccable wall that will be very difficult for your opponents to deal with. And to go along with Cotton Guard and Substitute if you so desire to, because obviously Cotton Guard will make your subs very difficult to break from the physical side, you're going to be going with Return again as your main stab attacking move, and then lastly Toxic as a way to slowly drain away your opponent's health. And this works especially well with the set because obviously Substitute will get you behind a protective barrier to shield you from attacks, thus allowing your opponent to then take more toxic damage in the process as they try to break your subs, which will become increasingly difficult to do because of Cotton Guard boosting your physical defense and the Fur Coat ability along with your max special defense. So this is just a very fun set to run with Furfrou that turns it into more of a defensive wall and allows it to take hits extremely well from both the physical and special sides of the attacking spectrum. And finally, I have a very frustrating set for your opponents to deal with. So we're going to start this one off by giving Furfrou an Impish Nature to increase its physical defense but lower its special attack, and then we're going to be going with the ability Fur Coat for a final time. As for the EVs, we're going to max its HP again with 252 EVs into that stat, and then max its physical defense this time with 252 EVs into that stat, and putting the remainder 4 EVs into its special defense. And since this is a more defensive set again, we are going to be going with Leftovers as a way to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn. As to the moves though, the first one that we're going to be going with is Substitute as a way to get behind a protective barrier to shield us from attacks and statuses, and also take advantage of any turns that our opponent may be unable to attack, because the whole purpose of this set is to make it so that your opponent is unable to attack and frustrate the heck out of them. So to start things off for this frustrating moveset, we are going to be going with Headbutt as your main physical attacking move on this set. It is quite a bit weaker than Return, but it does have a 30% chance to flinch, which is also really nice and will allow it to possibly make it so that your opponent is unable to attack. On top of that, we are also going to be going with Swagger as a way to confuse our opponents and also cause them to take more damage when they hit themselves in confusion, because Swagger will be boosting their physical attack by 2 stages. And the reason we're running max defense on this set with Fur Coat is that we should be able to still take a physical attack from a Pokemon that has been boosted by Swagger, because if we do boost their physical attack, we do need a way to shut them down anyway, so we do not want to give them an excuse to sweep our team with their +2 attack now once they break out of confusion, so that's just something to keep in mind. And then to round everything off, we're going to be going with Thunder Wave as a way to not only cripple our opponents by slowing them down, but also to potentially leave them fully paralyzed, thus making them unable to attack. So we have flinching, we have paralysis, and we have confusion all working for us on the set to frustrate the heck out of your opponent and make it so that they are unable to make a move. And obviously on any turn where you might expect them to be unable to attack, you get the free opportunity to set up a substitute, which will then make them have a difficult time of dealing with your Furfrou, as they now have to deal with you headbutting them and attacking before they're even going to be able to remotely break your sub. So overall, this is just a really fun, frustrating set to use, and I really enjoy using sets like these just because they're a lot of fun, and it's really cool to watch people get really annoyed when you use stuff like this. But anyways, that is it for this video, everybody, so I want to thank you all for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitch and on Twitter. Bookmark the Pokemon database that's in the description, as well as all the other links, so that you can have it for ease of access, as it will have all of these Furfrou sets, as well as all the other sets that I've been doing in my analysis series. And then lastly, feel free to join the Zat at zat.com/pokegrounds. But as I said, thank you all for watching, everybody. Take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.